be cold day. We've had some snow. I'll show you in a minute. But I was interested coming in the Polytunnel this morning to look at the strawberries, and yeah, they're looking fine. Just some young fresh leaves that are beginning to sprout. Bit of growth on most of them, and yeah, they're coming on just perfect. I've got to debate whether I actually pot them up to move them out of this bed, or whether I just hang in there and do the spreading of any compost later on. Anyway, let's go and have a look at that snow. There we are. There's not much of it left. It was about inch and a half, and it looked wonderful, but of course covers the ground. And then we had a hard frost last night, which has made it all very crunchy, but the sun's beginning to melt it now. And it's interesting to look at some of the telltale signs. I talk about cats on my plot, and there they are, all those cat trails walking around the plot. Gives you an idea, it's really quite a thoroughfare for the feline population in this area. Wow, it's looking beautiful. I did check the compost and it's still at 35 degrees centigrade, which is amazing in this really cold weather. But yeah, that'll be cooking on nicely. Well, Mr Harvey, you know who you are. A genius idea. I'm sure a number of you were thinking this, but it completely escaped me. So thank you very much for suggesting what I do with my shortfall of breeze blocks here. So I've got 2 breeze blocks on each support, and well, I was running short. I've got 2 at the back and no 1 at the back, and 3 of these just coping stones that I've put there for marking at the moment. But the suggestion was, if I take these 2 and turn them 90 degrees, they will support both corners of 2 IBC tanks. Genius! So that leaves me with just 3 to find, because that one can come over here. And what I'm thinking is have the front right, and at the back use some of the bricks that I've been collecting as I've worked around the plot downsizing, because there's a right old stack there, and well, it makes more sense to use things than to go off trying to find even more materials. So that, I think, is what I'm going to do. I will need to have one of those blocks underneath so that it's a real flat surface, and then choose the very best of those bricks with nice flat surfaces. And there's some really hard bricks. I know that sounds funny, but there's some very old bricks in there which are almost like fire bricks, really solid. So I think I'll use those. And there isn't a lot I can do on the plot this morning with all the snow and ice and frozen ground, but I think I can work on that. What I do need is some membrane, and I've been walking around thinking, well, what can I use? Let me show you what I found. Well, down here, this is one of the last things that I've got to clear out where I was storing my potato pots. There is a green sort of tarpaulin thing, which I could use that. I also took those composters for use for putting my manure in, and in one of those composters is some old spent soil which I want to move, and I notice there's a bit of a corner of membrane there, so I'm wondering how far that goes. So that's 2 pieces. And then in the Polytunnel, if you remember, when I was taking down the fruit cage, it had a tarpaulin roof, which is quite sizable. So I'm thinking that I could put that down. Now I know it's going to be a sort of bright green and everything else is black, but I could always cover it later when I get some membrane. And there it is. And that's really solid stuff, so that could be quite useful. In fact, it's probably the favoured choice. And maybe I use some of that other membrane that I just located, sort of along the edges. Right, well, let's lay that out and see how far it stretches. over this area that I'm going to put the bins. Not the bins, the tanks. Right, I'm getting my gloves on because it's pretty darn chilly. Right, let's have a look. See what this looks like. This has been in the polytunnel, so it's not frozen. I can't ever envisage using this again on the fruit cage because, well, I don't want to shade it. I definitely want it to be open to the elements. Well, do you know what? I think that's just about right. And I can just put the blocks right on the edge of it. And there's quite a lot of overlap, so if I bring it away from the path, it will go right up to the edge. Just perfect. Right, what I'm going to do, I think, is carefully move those blocks, because I've got them measured out quite well, and put them on the top. And then I can look at what configuration to utilise the things that I've got. Right. Well, that is looking pretty good. I'm really pleased with that tarpaulin because, well, it overlaps the front, but I can always roll it over or just tuck it under the membrane there. On the side, I want to carry on membrane, but I've got a nice edge and this has got eyelets in it, so I could feed membrane under it and then pin it down. And then the back, I'm going to end up probably just cutting so that I can feed it round that rose bush and round that trunk, but it goes right up to the edge, so that should be pretty good at keeping out any bindweed and ingrowing weeds. And then the layout of this works well, so I'd need to do brick levels on the back 3 breeze blocks. It is a bit like a skating rink, but yeah, with a decent brick like that laid across the whole surface, it should replicate a breeze block really nicely. I have noticed that that one's a bit high, so I think in getting the bricks, I also need to take that off, take the edge up and just get it down to the level of that one. And then I should be pretty much ready just to test how they look on the top. And I will get to the point of leveling them, I think, given that I've got the opportunity just to fiddle around with it. Probably not straight away, but if I get everything in place, then I can do some tweaking right at the end. But that's worked out well. Right, let's choose some bricks, get that corner down to the appropriate level. Well, winter work does bring its challenges, and today I'm a bit, well, stuffed. I can't move a single one of those bricks because they're all solid, frozen together. And I thought, well, I might just clear my barrels and start to think about that area. Of course, the barrels are full of water, which is solid ice. So all that work's gonna have to go on the back burner, as they say, for a while, whilst the sun gives it a good old thaw. I don't know whether that'll happen today. The sun's high in the sky and very bright, but things are solidly frozen. So I'm thinking I'll go and move that compost that I've just exposed, and at least that gets something done. I know that it's not frozen under those trees. I've been frustrated a couple of times today because I've been so used to just walking through the plot, but of course I've put this barrier in its place now, and then it occurred to me, well, I'm not going to want to walk over here, so it's not really a problem. It's just one of those interim issues while I'm coming and going. I really haven't got very much to move now, but for the time being I'll just have to walk round. Well, I've got some clearing up to do around here. before I leave the area completely. But it doesn't make sense to move this, it's quite soft, and expose that bit of membrane, pull it out, see what its uses are. And I've got to get rid of these pallets, so I'll be moving those as well. Right, something you can do because it's not frozen. Well, I always intended to clear out here, but yeah, it's been really beneficial. I've had 2 barrows of good compost and that decent bit of membrane, which is great, and a large piece of black polythene, which I don't have a use for at the moment, but I'm sure one will come along soon. So I think what I'm going to do is scoop those up, get this into the polytunnel, and see what I can do next, if anything at all. Well, every wheelbarrow of compost that I can backfill in the polytunnel helps get that area for growing this season up together. Well, there we are, that's 2 wheelbarrows in. That's certainly going to help. I'll pick out any of these leaves that I need to from the privet bush, and yeah, I think that's me done. Well, that bit of recovered membrane works perfectly for just getting from this green over the edge and into the shed area, and then I can work out what membrane I want in under the shed, if any. So I think what I'm going to do, because I can't do an awful lot else, is just lift these back, these blocks, and tuck this membrane underneath, and then put the blocks back on, and then it's nice and secure. It comes right up to the edge, which is perfect. It's a bit too long at that end, but I can sort all that out when I've finished. So that's next. It gives me a nice covered step. Well, I did find 3 additional bricks over in the old area, so I've just laid those on to see what they look like, and I think that's going to work out well, though I do want to have these flat surfaces rather than these recessed ones. Well, I know when I'm beat. I'm faffing around looking for things that I can do in these frozen conditions, and well, I'm not being very productive, so I think I'm going to call it a day. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, then why not like and subscribe and get my uploads every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 PM. Good times.